Hi everybody, this is Mrs. Davies and I am reading The Flower Hunter. It's a story about William Bartram, America's first naturalist, and this story was written by Deborah Cogan Ray. This is from the Journal of William Bartram. Begun on my 8th birthday, the 20th of April, 1747. Bartram Farm, Kingsessing, His Majesty's colony of Pennsylvania. My father, John Bartram, is a botanist. He studies plants and trees. I help him with his work. My name is William, but everyone calls me Billy. Father calls me his little botanist. Father and I collected seeds from the red maple trees today. Long before I was born, Father planted a few red maple trees from seeds he had collected. More trees planted themselves when the wind carried their seeds all over our hillside. Father says we are doing the work of the wind when we gather seeds to plant in other places. We will pack our collection into big wooden boxes, which contain many kinds of seeds that Father has found in his travels. They will be shipped across the ocean to England, where there is much curiosity about American plants. After dinner, I started a drawing of a red maple leaf. With the leaf as a model, I sketched the outline and stem as exactly as I could because a botanical drawing must be accurate. When I showed my picture to Father, he said, "Very fine rendering, Billy." He lent me his magnifying glass so that I could see the intricate patterns of the leaf's veins. They formed designs that looked like Father's maps of faraway rivers and mountains. Father has explored for plants in places few Americans have been. He has met French fur traders and sat with the chiefs of the 6 Indian nations at Onondaga. I dream of the day when he will take me with him. On my 9th birthday, when spring comes, I have little time for drawing. There are many farm chores, and everyone in the family must help. Father was a farmer long before he studied the science of botany. His experiments to improve crops led to his wanting to learn how plants grow. Father and my older brothers plow and plant the fields for the wheat, oat, flax, and corn that we grow for market. Mother and my sisters plant the large kitchen garden that provides vegetables for our family of 11. There are 9 children. 4 are older than me, 3 are younger, and I have a twin sister. I tilled 2 acres for flowers that are grown for seed we sell, and I planted herbs in Father's medicinal garden. Every day, I help him tend the bushes and trees in his experimental nursery. That is where he cultivates the many varieties of plants found on his wilderness travels. Father is teaching me to identify plant families by examining the shape of the leaves, the structure of the seeds, buds, and flowers, the bark and branching patterns of trees. Some are difficult to identify because they resemble other plants, but I have begun to recognize many, and Father says I am learning quickly. September 1749. Mr. Franklin explained electricity to me today. Father's best friend, Benjamin Franklin, came to visit. He arrived as thunder crashed and a rainstorm began. "Come, Billy," he called, "let us watch nature's display." It took all my courage to go outside with him, for I have always feared thunderstorms. As we watched lightning bolts crackle and light up the sky, Mr. Franklin explained that he is studying nature's great electrical power to learn how to harness this energy for scientific purposes. Like Father, Mr. Franklin is interested in all the ways of nature. They spent the afternoon talking about the formation of mountains, the flow of oceans, and the composition of stars. I was not supposed to be listening, but I want to learn about the ways of nature too. Mother caught me in my hiding place behind the stairs and told me not to eavesdrop. April 1750. A short journey with Father. Today, Father and I ferried across the Delaware River to Cedar Creek in New Jersey. The fiddlehead ferns, trillium, and other woodland flowers were emerging. The mosses were greening. It was a perfect time to be collecting them. As we searched the forest floor, I spied pink lungwort, a species of pulmonaria. I recognized it from a description in Father's botanical notes. He congratulated me on my discovery. He has found this variety only once, he said. I have lately become interested in studying and drawing birds and other wildlife, as well as plants. I sketched a blue heron before we departed Cedar Creek. My journeys with Father end too quickly. I have accompanied him overnight, but have never been allowed too far from home. He says I am not yet old enough, but he admits that he often gets lonely on his journeys. I hope that very soon Father will let me be his wilderness companion. September 1753. My first long journey with Father to the Catskill Mountains in New York. At last I am bound for the wilderness. Father and I saddled our horses and departed Kingsissing for the Catskill Mountains on the first day of this month. We rode 90 miles due north, crossed the Blue Mountains of New Jersey, then traveled another 100 miles through the Hudson River highlands in New York. On the 5th day, we left our horses at the inn where we had spent the night and begun a long and steep hike to the Great Falls of Catskill. We carried no water, as Father had found many cool springs along this route on his previous visit, but all of them had dried up in the summer's drought. Finally, we reached a small, clear lake where we quenched our thirst and rested. I heard the thunder of the Great Falls long before I saw them. When I scrambled up a high rock ledge, I beheld a roaring cascade that plummeted into the deep chasm. Water spray filled the air. Never could I have imagined such a sight. September 1753, Catskill Mountains. For days we have been exploring these wondrous mountains on horseback and on foot. I climbed granite peaks that cradle the clouds. Father and I gathered mayapple in the shadow of towering forests. Wild cherries are plentiful in the valleys. Our saddlebags are bulging with spruce seedlings that we dug and wrapped in burlap. At night, we camped under the stars on beds of feathered moss. Today, I scaled tall firs to collect their cones. Father and I climbed a crumbling cliff and found fossils of fish engraved in stone. In the glow of the setting sun, I watched eagles soar and sketched a glorious colored rattlesnake. My skill at drawing wildlife and plants improves. I told Father that I wish to spend my life portraying nature's beauty. He said he thinks it's a noble ambition, but he fears drawing pictures will never afford me a reasonable living. But I care nothing about riches, except those that exist in nature. April 1755, Kinsessing His Majesty's Colony of Pennsylvania on my 16th birthday. We are living in a general state of alarm. Entire families are being murdered and scalped, their farms burned to the ground. France and Britain have been arguing about who should possess territory in America. The French have encouraged uprisings among the native people, and the British have placed huge rewards on the heads of the tribal chiefs. Many colonists have armed themselves and gone in pursuit of the reward. Mr. Franklin has established a home guard to protect Philadelphia and nearby towns. We disagree with our old friend on the matter of bearing arms. As Quakers, we will not participate in the taking of human life. Father holds that the needless killing of any creature of this earth is wrong, and I agree, but our family remains concerned about the possibility of attack. Mother has equipped a hiding place for us in the root cellar. Throughout the winter, I checked for footprints in the snowy woods above the river. We are wary whenever we see a stranger at the boundary of our farm. Father has canceled our botanical expedition to the mountains of Virginia that was scheduled for this month. It is now too dangerous to travel in the wilderness areas. July 1763, Cape Fear, North Carolina. Father has been appointed His Majesty's botanist for North America by King George III. After 7 years of bloody conflict, the French and Indian War ended 2 years ago. The Treaty of Paris gave Britain all the territory east of the Mississippi River. Father's duty as His Majesty's botanist for North America is to explore this new territory. He is to gather plant specimens, study the soil and weather conditions for planting crops, and map the rivers. Billy, does thee wish to accompany me? Father wrote. His letter reached me at the trading post that I set up 4 years ago on the Cape Fear River. Though I have no talent for business, The store has provided a small income while I pursue my painting and study of plants and bird migrations. Within a week, I sold my stock at auction, packed my art supplies, and happily prepared to set off to meet Father. My duty will be to draw pictures of the plants and wildlife that we encounter on our journey. September 1763, Charleston, His Majesty's Colony of South Carolina. Since Father's ship arrived in the city of Charleston, we have purchased horses, obtained what scanty maps we can find, and arranged with brokers for the care and transport of the plants that will be shipped to England. Father has written letters to traders who will provide us with canoes and guides for hire, and to dignitaries we hope to visit along our route. Our plan is to go as far into the wilderness of East and West Florida as the Indian nations will permit. Father's heart is young, but his body is not. He has declared that this will be his last long expedition. October 1763. St. Augustine, His Majesty's Territory of East Florida. For the past 6 weeks, Father and I have followed the coastal waterways from Charleston to this old Spanish settlement in East Florida. In the course of our journey, we lost our way along the winding Altamaha River in Georgia. As darkness fell, we found a spot for camping along the riverbank and resigned ourselves to wait for morning. We awoke to a discovery. Beside our campsite grew a small tree that we had never seen in any of our travels. We examined the leaves, bark, and structure of its branches, but they did not reveal its family. Since the tree was not in bloom, we could not identify the species by the flower. We explored the riverbank and found several more examples, but were unable to gain any other information. Nor did I have an opportunity to make but a hasty sketch of the tree, as Father was anxious to find a route back. He regretted that we found no seeds for further study and hoped that in the course of our travels we would come across this mysterious tree again. February 1766, St. Augustine, His Majesty's Territory of East Florida. We have returned to St. Augustine to prepare the maps and reports of our expedition. We were trying to reach the source of the St. Johns River, but were forced to turn back when the dense growth of reeds and plants prevented further passage upriver. We experienced severe weather and many problems traveling in this southern climate. It has been so hot that the horses were near collapse. It has rained with such intensity that placid creeks swelled with raging currents. Father nearly drowned when our canoe capsized. He saved himself by clinging to tree roots until I could right the canoe and paddle to his aid. Despite the difficulties, I am much taken with the giant forests, with wild, dark swamplands and green savannas. My journey with Father is nearly ended. He will be returning to Philadelphia soon, but it is agreed that I will remain here in East Florida to continue exploring this land, which is unlike any I have known. September 1776, Savannah, Colony of Georgia. My explorations of North and South Carolina, Georgia, and East and West Florida are now completed. It is 10 years since I said goodbye to my father in St. Augustine. I have come to Savannah to send the last of my plant specimens and a crate of my paintings and drawings by ship to Pennsylvania before I return overland. I was fortunate to find a vessel to take them. Trade routes are threatened because our colonies are at war with Britain. In July, the bell was rung in Philadelphia to proclaim America's independence. The news has only now reached me. My search for plants has taken me into wilderness that few Americans know exists. I have lived with the people of the Choctaw Creek and Cherokee nations. They taught me their customs and language and guided me on their forest trails. The Seminole people invited me to feast on watermelon and oranges at their harvest celebration. They called me Puck Puggy, which means flower hunter. December 1776, en route to Philadelphia. Though it has been for the most part a solitary journey, I have not been lonely. The creatures that inhabit the mountains, swamplands, and meandering rivers have been my traveling companions. Nature has been my teacher, and I have followed its path with an open heart to learn its wonders. I fell asleep to the night howl of wolves and hooting owls, and awakened to the morning call of loons. In a dark swamp, I was terror-struck as alligators battled fiercely. I traveled by canoe and sailboat, on horseback and on foot. I gathered mountain laurel and lichen on rocky peaks. In the lagoons of tropical forests, I observed fish, turtles, and water birds. I was snowbound in the Appalachians and shipwrecked on a sea-swept island off the coast of Florida in a summer hurricane. Through the seasons, I wrote my scientific notes and painted hundreds of pictures. My travels took me far into the West, a journey of 2,400 miles. I stood on the banks of the great Mississippi River on America's frontier. January 1777, Bartram Farm, King Sessing Colony of Pennsylvania. Today, I return to our farm on the banks of the Schuylkill River. My brothers and sisters and their children gathered. Nieces and nephews born during my absence were introduced to me. It is a shock to see the changes that time has brought. Mother's hair has turned white, and father is nearly blind. I fear his days as a botanist are over. Everyone was eager to hear of my adventures. Father paid close attention to each scientific detail. The story that pleased him most was of the small tree that we discovered together when we were lost on the Altamaha River. Last summer, I returned to the same riverbank and found the tree in full and fragrant bloom. I described the flowers to Father as very large, of snow-white color, and ornamented with a crown of gold. It was a remarkable specimen, for it bore ripe fruit simultaneously. Sadly, Father could not see the picture I had painted, but I think he formed a mental image from my description. I gave him the handful of seeds that I had collected. Though I searched as far as the Mississippi River, I never found another tree of its kind. We decided that so rare a tree must be given a special name. We named it in honor of our old friend Benjamin, and for its place of discovery, Franklinia Altamaha. We will plant the seeds in the spring. And there is a picture of the flower. That is the story of William Bartram. And he can be compared to John James Audubon. He did for flowers what Audubon did for birds. Okay, guys, have a great day. Thanks for listening.